All right, and we are live. Give me a 1 minute of lead time here before we start the stream. In the meantime, check out the sun at 171 angstroms as an active region rises. Again, we'll be back in 1 minute. If you're tuning in live, tell your friends and foes. And if you're not tuning in live, tell your friends and foes anyway. All right, let's cut that down. Anyway, we see this active region rising. We see no sunspots. We see very low solar activity. See a very low solar wind speed. Let's look at the 304 angstroms view, as there are lots of filaments on the Earth-facing solar disk. And there's approximately the last 8 hours. In 304 angstroms. I would note that there are some filaments associated with that active region there, kind of on the leading edge of it, in this region right about here. I don't know if you can see that circle or not. Get out Epic Pen. Right about there. And so we'll be keeping an eye on that, as that is because that is a bit suspended. And I am told by smAsho staff that I forgot to screen share. All right, great. All right, there we go. That's better. Let's go back to the view at 171 angstroms. Geez, somehow that's the first time I've done that, folks. Anyway, there's the view at 171 angstroms. That's about 8 hours. And here's the 304 angstroms view. All right, so we see plasma filaments in this area, as well as out here. Otherwise, there's really not a lot going on, very low solar wind speed and so on. Before we move on to the rest of the report, I would invite you to check out our Hemp Lucid campaign that we just started. We are dipping our toes into the world of CBD sales. So check that out if you're into these products. Things such as the water-soluble CBD, the oil-suspended CBDs, the THC-free ones, you got lip balm, and so forth. If you got any questions about it, click the description below our video here on YouTube, and you'll be able to find this campaign there. Again, Hemp Lucid. It's we've just started this up, and we're considering the possibility of getting a little more serious about this. So please check it out if you like. Here's a real-time solar wind. We just saw an uptick in the solar wind density. We see that's all the way up to 17.06 protons per cubic centimeter there. literally upticked right as we started the video. And solar wind speed has jumped up also a little bit to 309. It was actually below 300 when we were doing show prep. Thanks again, smAsho staff, for noting that little problem. We're going to shorten the magnetosphere movie section here. We wish these videos would play a little faster. Also, keep in mind, folks, there are changes coming to the channel very soon. And for those of you who support us on Patreon, thanks, all three of you, as you may have already seen some new content come out. The current tier is only $1 on Patreon, by the way, folks. Anyway, there's the magnetosphere movie. That's the pressure. And we're going to show the density also, as we just had a density spike. And you should see it right at the very end of the movie. You can quote me on it. Now, these magnetosphere movies, the density one here, this is you're looking at low density is the white color and high density is the blue color, as noted on the legend above the movie, the animations there. And this is about 4 hours worth of data. We should see a density spike come in here right at the very end. And I think it was too short of a period of time to really show up as anything. Keep in mind, these are models and they're based on a lot of measurements. So I'm going to look at ground perturbations also. Just look at the global view, as we are shortening the videos for various reasons. It has nothing to do with analytics or trying to get subscribers, as this channel happened spontaneously. Anyway, we see the standard perturbations here as the South Pole creeps toward Western Australia. We're going to skip the electron content forecast and encourage you to follow us on Patreon. We just put up a post, and if you're not a patron, you can't see that post. Also, thanks donors who have been making anonymous and obvious contributions on PayPal. It's making a huge difference, keeping our operation afloat in various ways. Also, please check out the cycling sponsor, which is theveloshop.net. It's also the race team for which we race. If you want to sponsor the whole team as a corporate sponsor, please email me, smashomash@gmail.com. I will get you in touch with Becky, who is the team manager. And also a bike racer. So the shop also has one of the most respected mechanics in the Lehigh Valley, Alan Schaefer. There are bolts on my bike that have been turned by Alan years ago and have never been turned back. Anyway, check it out, theveloshop.net. Thanks again, sponsors, donors, etc. Let's get on with the space weather. Please visit the links in the description after you're done viewing the video. So here's a synoptic map. And we see this active region right here. It's very large. And but it's not a sunspot, and it is harboring some plasma complexity. And we do expect to see upticks in things like X-ray flux as this gets more into an Earth-facing region. We do see a large plasma filament up here, as noted by Gegnell. I'm not sure. I think that's a G. What a stylish signature, forecaster. Anyway, there's a synoptic map, and let's actually look at solarham.net's homepage here at the LASCO C2. and not really showing any ejecta there. Although you do see a bit of a plasma plume coming out of the eastern side of the sun there, again associated with that active region. And here's the C3, a little more distant view, a zoomed out view of the same thing. Nothing to write home about there. All right, so I believe the 10.7 centimeter radial flux is still at 70. Would be of no surprise to see this rise over the next couple days, as that active region is again very huge and well above predicted values, and that's a good thing, as solar minimum is not healthy for humans. If you're worried about the planet warming, we implore you to increase your carbon footprint. Please increase your carbon footprint. Right. So the X-ray flux is flatlined. Again, we just saw an uptick in the solar wind density. And over the last 2 days, the solar wind speed dipped down, and now it's upticked a little bit. Magnetometer is looking smooth, but in a weak range as forecasted. And the KP index has been at 1. We do see some striations in the electron flux similar to yesterday. At least both the 14 and the 15 are returning data. Charging hazards are minimal. F2 layer is a bit discharged on the nighttime side. Not really surprising, and the magnetosphere movies did reflect that. And I think I went back too far. You've gone too far, smAsho mash. You've gone too far. Don't worry, folks. Eric Schmidt didn't show up at my house yesterday and beat me with a rubber pipe. There's the aurora forecasts. They're looking pretty weak. And let's look at some transients. We're going to look at 3 of them here. Sagittarius A star, which is the core of the Milky Way galaxy. There are Sagittarius A star's radio transients. We're also going to look at Cygnus A, which is the massive radio galaxy located about 530 million light years away. It also happens to be the second strongest radio source in the entire sky, second only to the sun. Also, let's look at Cygnus X3, one of the most reliable cosmic ray sources. Also known as the tail of the swan, the star Deneb. It is a high-mass X-ray binary consisting of a Wolf-Rayet star and a high-mass orbiting companion object. And this is an object that we look right down the Z field of, which is why it's so difficult to calculate its distance. We're not going to get into redshift yet. We're not going to get into redshift much, I should say. And let's look at cosmic rays. First, we'll look at Apatity and Barentsburg, which look like they've leveled off. Next, we'll look at Athens. Saw a big spike in Athens on the 1st. It looks like it's leveled off also. Mexico City looks leveled. By the way, this one you can request old data on. There are links to the Cosmic Ray, this Cosmic Ray links page in the description. Here's Moscow, also leveled off. And there's Oulu. looking pretty flat over the past week. DOMC Antarctica, the same deal, and DOMB Antarctica. Pretty much the same deal there. So no cosmic ray uptick. Let's look at the Gong 2 to look at the details of the magnetic environment of the heliosphere. We've got some fluctuations in the northern Z field there. When you see that green flip-flopping back and forth, does not appear to be associated with the plage. So that could be a weakening of the south solar pole, or a strengthening of the or a strengthening of the solar north pole. You see that frame. See the fields turn green right here, right there. That's predominantly the north polar field affecting the heliosphere. Also keep in mind that stereo B is kind of busted since 2014. A hardware anomaly has stopped it from functioning correctly. So we're not exactly sure what that means, but this is stereo A, if you weren't aware. That's stereo B. And here's your backyard. And we'll look at stereo A space weather beacon here. The coronagraph way out there, 4 months behind the Earth. Way out there, 1/3 of the way, orbitally behind the Earth. Here's all of the data we can muster. And basically you're seeing a plasma plume associated with that active plage. And by the way, that plage is a cycle 24 plage. Does not have the polarity we would anticipate if it was associated with cycle 25. So anyway, that plume of plasma, you see it on the synoptic map and the 304 angstrom view, and from stereo A, which again is located about here. Here's stereo B. And regarding where you're located, it's where it says Earth. All right, and let me just refresh this so we have today's information. There's the current locations. There's where they'll be in 1 week as Earth approaches a Jupiter conjunction. Here's a sky map, as I like to know what's going on above my head. There's Deneb, by the way, as it circles Polaris all summer. If you get up before dawn, you should be able to see Jupiter and Saturn. Venus should be rising soon as well. Follow us on other social media. We've just gone over 2,000 posts on Instagram, instagram.com/smashomash, twitter.com/smashomash. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Minds, the social media that will not censor you and is open source. You will not be shadow banned. You will find things that you search for. You'll get the notifications you ask for. Everything will generally work correctly. Minds.com. Links in the description. Also, we recently started on Gab. Thanks again, smAsho staff. You're doing a fine job. And thanks for letting us know that there was no video. Sorry about that, folks. And if you haven't liked and subscribed on YouTube yet, please do so, as there is exclusive content that you may not see in other places. Let's go over earthquakes. Here we see yesterday morning in the Kuril Islands, south of Kamchatka, a 4.6. Here's a 5.9 in Tonga, largest quake there in a while. Another 4.5 south of Kamchatka, 4.3 at Japan. At depth, also a 4.8 at Indonesia at depth, 4.5 at Turkey, 4.1 at Alaska at depth, way out in the Aleutian chain. Leave a comment if that's a volcanic quake. I really don't know, and I'm not going to look. Here's a 4.9 in Tonga, right at the same spot there. Looks like an aftershock. Here's a 4.1 in Peru at depth. Heads up South America if you're on the West Coast, as you've been seeing deep quakes for a long time. 4.5 at the Philippines, 4.7 at the West Chilean rise, 4.5 at the Philippines, 4.6 at Chile. Listen to me bearing down on that mouse button. Oh, yeah. You can tell I haven't replaced my mouse yet. Here's a 4.3 at Russia, 4.3 at El Salvador. By the way, that Russian quake was at depth. Shout out if you're able to see our videos in Russia. 4.9 at Fiji. 4.6 at Indonesia, 4.7 at Tonga, 4.6 at New Zealand. Geez, check it out. At a very deep depth, heads up New Zealand. Deep quake, 266-kilometer depth. 4.8 at Chile. 5.8 at Indonesia. That's a pretty big one. I hope too many buildings did not crumble there. Here's the interactive map. Is it populated? I don't think it's populated, folks. Anyway, let's move on here as there's still quite a bit of stuff to cover. Looks like a bit of an earthquake uptick, no? What the heck happened there? How did I bring up a search bar? All right. I'm totally lost. I have no idea where I just was. Was it that? I think it was that. .5 and a 5.2 at depth. All right, let's get out of here as there's a lot of stuff to do and very worried about Greenland melting as there's at least 9 feet of snow from coast to coast. Let's look at pressure maps. In fact, let's get pressure maps as we are not required to do anything. So we're going to look at volcanoes, such as Abico, which is producing a 12,000-foot ash plume, back on the list. Dacono, 8,000-foot plume there. Sangay, 19,000-foot plume, so an uptick there. Revenador, continuing emissions, ongoing emissions. And Sabancaya still producing explosive activity. Yowzers. Sabancaya coming through with the explosions. And with the 27,000-foot ash plume there, don't go over it in your flight suit, Tom. Are you watching, Tom? And we see harsh weather all across the southern southwest, the south and the west. Severe thunderstorms, all kinds of freeze and frost warnings in north central, and severe thunderstorm watches across the mid-Atlantic. Geez. Texas not getting a break as they're getting pummeled again. Shout out Texas. If you're not familiar with lightningmaps.org, the next time you hear thunder, go to lightningmaps.org, zoom in on your location, and guess what, Abilene? You are in the crosshairs. You're going to be hearing thunder in about 5 seconds. Show you the water vapor map here. Might as well show you the entire view, as there are 2 convergences going on. One just southeast of me, and the other one about 2,000 miles southwest. Also, there's a big storm brewing in the Gulf right now. So we're going to zoom in on that one, as Texas is probably sick of seeing us zoom in on Texas every day. So if you're watching from Texas, please leave a comment. Man, oh man. Anyway, there's a situation going on in the Gulf. And let's just say there's a lot of convection going on there. A lot of convection. I would also note that none of these parallel lines are chemtrails or contrails. Let's move on to the that is an ass and that is a hole in the ground section. Let's use it in a sentence. The Federal Reserve is the main cause of
inflation.
And what we're talking about is a continuing rise in the general price level, usually associated to an increase in the volume of money and credit relative to available goods and services. Now, I prefer to take that one step further and say it means your money's losing value, because people have a tendency to blame whoever's raising prices on the merchants when the merchants are reacting to loss in value of the currency. There's a reason why governments won't tell you the exact inflation numbers, and it's because money gets created from thin air. If you're not familiar with the Federal Reserve, I highly suggest you read The Creature of Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. You think he's a conspiracy theorist? I don't know what to tell you. The book is accurate. I didn't understand economics until I read The Creature of Jekyll Island. Please read. Let's look at some financial indicators, such as Bitcoin on Coinbase. Again, Bitcoin on the Coinbase exchange. There's the 1-year chart. You see it's very close to 1-year highs, which just came about a week ago. Here's the run-up 6-month chart. Very close to its all-time, well, to its 1-year highs. Also want to look at Ethereum on Coinbase. And that doesn't look right. I don't know what I'm looking at here. This isn't the right thing. It should be the same chart. Why is it showing me July? Let's try again. Ethereum on Coinbase. Come on, CNBC, you can do it. Anyway, it's a similar chart to Bitcoin. There we go. There's a 6-month run up on Ethereum, very similar. And the peak was achieved at practically the same day. Also, I want to check and see what's going on with commodities. We did see a small run up in gold and silver. I want to look at wheat and corn. And so there's the recent run up in wheat and corn. The first one was the wheat. Here's the corn. And these are a little bit off their highs, but very close to their highs. We only predicted increases in commodity prices 2 months ago. You're welcome, Chicago Board of Traders. If you traded on our videos, please donate to the channel, as there was a lot of money to be made. And lastly, I'm just going to look at silver before I look at the Dow and the NASDAQ. Silver looking pretty weak, in my opinion. We're going to ignore oil, and we're going to look at the Dow and the NASDAQ and move on. Actually, let's look at the S&P and not even look at the Dow or the NASDAQ, as the S&P is a larger indicator than either. Anyway, we see a sell-off there in the past month on the S&P, which is, of course, the top 500 U.S. stocks. Let's get a little more spaced out here, as a study shows insights into stellar population gas outflow in NGC 1068. This epic spiral galaxy, turns out a bunch of hot dust, this bunch of hot, dusty, gassy baryonic matter, dust and gas, seems to be feeding the black hole at the quote black hole and quote object at the center of NGC 1068. It's dusty gas and dust. A Doppler shift has been measured in several of those lines, leading to the conclusion that they are tracing the outflow originating from around the nucleus, whose northern part is moving toward the observer and the southern part away from it. Now, this is about 53 million light years away. So there could be some issues with the redshift, let's just say. And anyway, there are links to the article in the description. It's at phys.org in the astronomy and space section. And here we see another affront to cosmology, as we see this elliptical galaxy with a bunch of young stars in it. So how can that be Messier 59, otherwise known as NGC 4621, a giant elliptical galaxy which is thought to be more highly evolved with a lot of young stars in it? So welcome to the Neo-Renaissance, folks. Physics is being rewritten. Physics is being rewritten. If you weren't aware, I'm delighted to have told you so, because it's awesome. And it's super important because of the implications on things like human technology, for instance, and also the understanding of the Earth's catastrophe cycles, right? So here's the view at 94 angstroms. Let me get to the chat. Thanks for tuning in and leaving a comment, folks. Again, thanks smAsho staff for saving that. I could have gone on through the whole video with audio only. So in the Southern Ocean, the South Magnetic Pole is like just off the coast of Antarctica. All right, cheers, everybody. Thanks again. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please visit the links in the description. Go check out our brand new Hemp Lucid campaign. Links there also. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being spaced out. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins.